Connor, Blake, Mason, Tyler, and Ryan, 5 pro hockey players celebrated as heroes on the ice, found their lives turned upside down when a shocking accusation threatened to destroy everything. One woman claimed they had assaulted her during a private party, while the players insisted she had fantasized about doing the whole team. What really happened that night? The truth is darker, more twisted, and more shocking than anyone could imagine. It was a night that promised celebration, laughter, and the kind of indulgence only professional athletes could afford. The city's skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows of a luxury high-rise, and inside, the penthouse suite was filled with music, champagne, and the glow of victory. The 5 hockey players were at the peak of their careers, adored by fans, sponsored by brands, and idolized by young athletes who dreamed of following in their skates. They had just finished a critical playoff series, and the mood was electric. But beneath the surface, something dark and irreversible was about to unfold. The night began innocently enough. Guests mingled, cameras flashed, and drinks flowed freely. The young woman who later became the center of the storm arrived, seemingly part of the celebration, laughing and enjoying the spectacle of fame and athleticism. No one could have predicted that hours later, the scene would erupt into a scandal that would captivate the nation. What started as casual conversation and friendly interactions allegedly shifted into coercion, pressure, and actions she claimed she had never consented to. The details, blurred and fragmented in memory, painted a picture both horrifying and complicated. By morning, the party had ended, but the consequences were only beginning. Reports surfaced of a police investigation, and news outlets quickly picked up fragments of the story. The young woman alleged that she had been subjected to a coordinated assault by the 5 players, an accusation that sent shockwaves through the sports world. Fans were stunned. Social media exploded with outrage, disbelief, and speculation, while memes and commentary spread faster than any official statement could. The accused players, meanwhile, denied wrongdoing. Their defense was shocking and controversial. They argued that the woman had spoken about fantasies involving multiple partners, suggesting that the encounter was consensual, or at least a mutual exploration rather than assault. The contrast between accusation and defense fueled public fascination. How could 5 celebrated athletes, praised for their discipline and dedication, be implicated in such a sordid allegation? How could a woman's fantasies be used to question the legitimacy of her trauma? The lines between reality and perception blurred, leaving the public torn and authorities cautious. This was not just a scandal. It was a collision of fame, desire, and justice, a story that promised to test the boundaries of law, morality, and the human psyche. Every eye turned toward the investigation, every mind grappling with questions that had no easy answers. The investigation began quietly, behind the closed doors of police stations and law offices, but it quickly grew into a complex and high-stakes operation. The alleged assault had taken place in a private penthouse with few witnesses, leaving authorities to piece together events from fragments, blurred footage, messages, and the testimonies of those involved. Every detail mattered: the timing of arrivals, who had been drinking, and what conversations had taken place. Investigators meticulously reconstructed the night, replaying videos and analyzing digital footprints in search of clues that could confirm or deny the accusations. Forensic teams examined clothing, personal items, and traces of DNA, hoping to find evidence that could establish consent or the lack of it. Each result added another layer of tension. While some findings seemed to support the accuser's claims, others raised questions about the sequence of events, making the truth appear more elusive with every passing day. Investigators had to balance the pressure of public scrutiny with the need for careful, unbiased analysis, a challenge made more difficult by the fame of the individuals involved. The 5 hockey players, meanwhile, were under constant legal and media pressure. Their lawyers argued that the accuser's own messages, shared in private conversations, revealed a fascination with multiple partner scenarios, a detail they claimed could not be ignored. This defense strategy shocked many observers, as it raised complex questions about the role of fantasy in legal interpretations of consent. Could what someone imagined or joked about change how the law viewed the situation? Or was this an attempt to manipulate perception and shift blame away from the accused? As investigators dug deeper, inconsistencies in statements began to emerge. Some details were minor timing, recollections of drinks or movement around the suite, but others were more significant, casting doubt on key elements of the case. Every new discrepancy created ripple effects, forcing prosecutors and defense attorneys to adjust their strategies and reconsider what the evidence actually proved. Meanwhile, social media fueled speculation, with every leak, rumor, and analysis intensifying the storm. The tension was relentless. Both sides knew that a single piece of evidence could change everything, tipping the balance toward conviction or exoneration. The players' careers, reputations, and futures hung in the balance, while the accuser faced the burden of proving her story in a world that often questioned the credibility of sexual assault claims. Each day of the investigation felt like a countdown to revelation, as everyone waited for the truth to emerge from the tangled mix of memory, perception, and conflicting narratives. As the investigation unfolded, the story spilled out into the public like wildfire. News outlets competed to report every detail, from the initial accusations to leaked messages and witness statements. Headlines sensationalized the events, some painting the players as predators, others suggesting the allegations were exaggerated or manipulated. Social media became a battlefield, with divided camps forming overnight. Fans and critics argued passionately, hashtags trended, and the story became a cultural phenomenon far beyond the hockey world. Every post, every opinion, seemed to escalate the tension surrounding the case. The players' reputations suffered immediately. Endorsement deals were paused or canceled, interviews were abruptly called off, and even casual public appearances drew scrutiny. Team management faced mounting pressure from sponsors and league officials, forcing them to navigate a delicate balance between supporting their athletes and respecting the seriousness of the allegations. Locker rooms became tense, and whispers of unease spread among teammates. The players were no longer just athletes. They were symbols of controversy, their every move dissected and debated by fans, journalists, and legal experts alike. Meanwhile, the accuser faced a different kind of pressure. Her private life became public property, and online harassment compounded the trauma of the alleged assault. Skeptics questioned her motives, scrutinized her past, and analyzed her private messages for evidence of fantasy or exaggeration. Friends and family watched helplessly as the intensity of public attention invaded every aspect of her life. Even simple acts like leaving her home or speaking publicly carried risks of misinterpretation or backlash. Amid the chaos, rumors began to surface. Some claimed the party had been far more chaotic than originally reported, with alcohol, drugs, and reckless behavior blurring boundaries. Others suggested there were incidents from previous parties, though no evidence substantiated these claims. Every new claim fueled speculation and public debate, often with little regard for facts. The media frenzy also influenced the legal process. Lawyers had to navigate not just courtroom strategy, but public perception, knowing that social outrage could indirectly affect the case. The players' defense teams emphasized the fantasy messages and prior consensual interactions, while prosecutors cautioned against conflating imagination with reality. The narrative was shifting constantly, creating a tense environment where truth, rumor, and assumption collided. In this storm of publicity and suspicion, the line between innocence and guilt became increasingly difficult to discern, leaving both the players and the accuser caught in a whirlwind with no clear escape. Months into the investigation, unexpected revelations began to surface, turning the case in directions no one had anticipated. Private messages and online activity from the accuser suggested she had discussed fantasies involving multiple partners well before the night in question. Investigators debated how much weight to give these messages. Did they indicate consent, or were they irrelevant to the actual events? Legal experts weighed in publicly, explaining that fantasies alone could not automatically dismiss allegations of assault. Yet the timing and content of the messages complicated the narrative, offering the defense a way to challenge key points of the accuser's testimony. The case took another twist when a new witness came forward. This individual claimed to have seen interactions between the players and the accuser earlier in the evening that appeared consensual, contradicting parts of the original account. However, questions about the witness's credibility quickly emerged. Their connection to the team raised concerns about bias, and investigators had to carefully analyze whether this testimony could be trusted or if it was an attempt to protect the players. Every statement, every new detail, seemed to pull the case in multiple directions at once. Meanwhile, investigators uncovered discrepancies in minor details that suddenly carried significant implications. Timelines of who entered or left the suite, inconsistencies in recollections about who had been drinking or when conversations occurred, and contradictions in statements from other partygoers created a web of uncertainty. Each day brought new evidence, yet each discovery seemed to complicate rather than clarify the truth. The more investigators dug, the more the story resisted a simple explanation. Public interest remained relentless. Every new twist fueled online debate, with some insisting the accuser had been manipulated, and others arguing the players were leveraging fantasy as a defense tactic. Legal analysts dissected every message and testimony in real time, turning the case into a spectacle as much about public perception as justice. As tension mounted, it became clear that the story was no longer just about the events of one night. It was a collision of fame, social influence, and the complex dynamics of consent. Every revelation seemed designed to challenge assumptions and make the truth harder to pinpoint. The player's innocence was questioned in some circles, defended in others, and the accuser's credibility remained under relentless scrutiny. With twists emerging at every turn, the investigation became a labyrinth, leaving the public to wonder whether the final outcome would reveal justice, compromise, or something far more ambiguous. The legal proceedings dragged on for months, each hearing feeling like a tense countdown to a resolution that seemed perpetually out of reach. Both sides prepared extensively, aware that the stakes were far higher than a typical case. For the players, careers and reputations hung in the balance, while for the accuser, every day brought the weight of public scrutiny and the emotional toll of reliving trauma. Courtroom battles over evidence, text messages, and witness credibility became the focal point, but outside, the court of public opinion continued to exert relentless pressure. Ultimately, the case ended with a settlement. No criminal convictions were handed down, leaving a cloud of ambiguity that frustrated many and satisfied few. The players returned to the ice, yet their public image remained tarnished. Fans debated their innocence or culpability, and sponsors cautiously re-engaged, mindful of lingering controversy. The accuser, meanwhile, faced an uncertain future, carrying the burden of a story that had dominated headlines, invaded her privacy, and defined her in ways she could never control. Even without a criminal conviction, the case left scars that could not be erased. Beyond individual consequences, the story sparked broader conversations about consent, power dynamics, and sexual assault in environments dominated by fame and influence. People debated the role of fantasy versus reality, asking whether private thoughts could or should impact legal interpretations. The case challenged assumptions about credibility, consent, and accountability, highlighting flaws in the ways society addresses sexual misconduct allegations, especially when those accused hold power and public admiration. The public fascination never fully subsided. Documentaries, articles, and social media analyses examine every facet, dissecting messages, timelines, and courtroom tactics. For some, the case was a cautionary tale about celebrity culture and accountability. For others, it became a discussion about the dangers of misinterpretation and the fine line between consent and coercion. No single perspective dominated, leaving the story open-ended in the collective imagination. In the end, the truth remained elusive. The events of that night, the intentions, and the perceptions, were locked in a liminal space between fact and interpretation. What could be proven in court was only a fraction of what people wanted to know. The story of those 5 players, the accuser, and a night that spiraled into national attention would continue to haunt the world of sports and the public consciousness alike, a haunting reminder that fame, desire, and human judgment often collide in ways that leave lasting, unanswerable questions.